In the area now overrun by the busy interchange of Loop 1, Mopac, and Palmer Lane in North Austin, lie the remnants of what once was a thriving community of freed African American slaves. Prominent in that community were Ruben and Elizabeth Hancock. Ruben and Elizabeth, after emancipation, bought land, established a farm, and raised a family. Their story and that of their descendants and neighbors has been brought to life through archaeological and historical investigations. Ruben Hancock, his wife Elizabeth, and many of their family members were slaves at the prominent Austin judge of John Hancock. Little is known for certain about their early life other than that they were all born into slavery, Ruben in Alabama and Elizabeth in Tennessee, during the 1840s. Although Texas did not recognize slave marriages, which otherwise would have resulted in written records, it is known that the two were married or committed as life partners before they gained their freedom. More is known about the life and philosophies of the judge. Despite his reliance on slavery, Judge Hancock was adamantly opposed to Texas' secession from the Union. After being elected to the state legislature in 1860 as a Unionist, he was removed from the office when he refused to swear allegiance to the Confederacy. In the 1860 census entry for Judge Hancock, he notes the ownership of his 15 slaves. Although none were individually listed, it is likely that Ruben Hancock and his brothers, Orange, Salem, and Peyton, were among them at the time. It is also likely, according to their family histories, that the four men were half-brothers of the judge. Their considerable duties would have included clearing land, planting, and working a 300-acre dairy farm, maintaining cattle and other livestock on the judge's extensive ranch lands, and then building a variety of structures. At the end of the Civil War, in 1865, brought emancipation for slaves, announced in Texas on June 19, 1865, or Juneteenth. Sometime after that, Ruben and his three brothers bought land in the area north of Boston, making them landowners at a time when many others, whites and African Americans alike, were sharecroppers and tenants. With few resources beyond their own strength and determination and the possible assistance of Ruben's former master, the judge, Ruben and Elizabeth Hancock established a productive farm, raised a family of 5 children, and helped establish a small but stable community of African American farmers. Known as Duval, the community was bound by family ties and a strong church, St. Stephen's Missionary Baptist, in which social gatherings and school classes for African American children and worship services were held. The coming of the A and Northwest Railroad, A and NW Railroad, through the Hancock Farm in 1881 meant an influx of families into the area and the new recreational resort of Summer Grove, later Waters Park. It also provided a means of transport for farm products, such as cotton from Ruben Hancock's fields to nearby markets. Ruben Hancock's daughter, Mabel Walker Newton, remembered visiting the farm as a child. She described his home as a comfortable house of logs and lumber sliding with 2 rooms under the main roof. The kitchen was a shed-type addition under a separate roof. One room was the living room where the fireplace was located. Newton remembers that both rooms had big windows with glass and wooden shutters that could be closed over them. As was the case for many farm families of the time, life was difficult. With seemingly unending chores for adults and children alike, there was no running water or electricity. Water was hauled from a well, and all cooking was done on a cast iron wood stove. Kerosene lanterns provided lighting for each house. The family raised cows and pigs, grew cotton and corn, and maintained a large vegetable garden and fruit trees. Surplus, extra food was sold to the local store owners or sold in Austin. According to family stories, the children found entertainment by playing baseball, marbles, and dominoes, using homemade pieces made of cardboard. On Sundays, they attended Sunday school and church picnics at St. Paul Baptist Church. Evenings often were filled with singing and socials with neighborhood friends and relatives. Elizabeth Hancock died in 1899. Ruben Hancock lived and continued to work on the farm well into his 60s, deciding to finally leave with his daughters. Susie until his death in 1916. 3 surviving children, all daughters, were kept on the farm until 1942 when the house was moved on. Little remains today of the small communities that once dotted the landscape in North Austin, save for a few street signs bearing some of their names. Over the past 100 years, northwest Travis County has changed from a rural area to one of the fastest growing urban areas in the United States. When a highway extension was planned at the area of Duval Road and Mopac, archaeologists from the Texas Department of Transportation surveyed the area for evidence of significant cultural remains. They also examined old maps and records, and it was through these means that they learned of the Hancock farmstead. Using an aerial photograph from 1937, TxDOT archaeologist John Clark was able to pinpoint the location of the farm and begin investigations. On the surface, there was little evidence of its existence, save for a well, chimney hearth, sections of fences, and low stone walls. Excavations helped locate possible stone piers of the house, trash areas, animal pens, and scatters of artifacts, giving archaeologists a better idea of the original farmstead layout and patterns of day-to-day life. One of the more poignant finds was a skeleton of a dog, likely a family pet, carefully placed in a shallow grave. Although more than 9,000 artifacts were uncovered, most were fragmentary. Nonetheless, careful analysis of many shards of glass, pottery fragments, and metal objects revealed much about the family, their day-to-day life, and purchasing habits and tastes. Historical archaeologist Marie E. Blake analyzed artifacts and other archaeological data. Historian Terry Myers set out to research family history, and family members shared recollections and faded photographs. Former neighbors were interviewed, and church records and other documents were tracked down. In a final analysis in which archival, oral, and archaeological evidence was weighed together, several defining characteristics of the Hancock family and farm became clear. The family members put forth a great deal of effort to achieve a level of equality and success, acquiring for themselves through their own hard work and comfortable life, complete with both the necessities and some of the trappings of genteel respectability. All of the Hancock brothers were able to own and work on their own farms. Each registered to vote, and each married and raised a family, members of which still prosper in the Austin area. All was created by their will and effort of a group of people who had just come out of the bonds of slavery. Freedom was sweet, and they made the most of it. Since the time of the excavations at the Ruben Hancock site, a comprehensive suite of investigations has been conducted at the Moore Hancock farmstead in Austin, where Ruben Hancock and his brothers lived and were enslaved to the Judge John Hancock. Current landowners Michael and Karen Collins were uniquely suited to overseeing the investigating process. Mike is an archaeologist with the Texas Archaeological Research Laboratory at UT, and Karen is a historian. Through their efforts, the story of Judge Hancock's farmstead and the families who lived in what is now the Rosedale area of Austin have been brought to light. During the process, numerous descendants of the Hancock family, including former slaves, were contacted, and they attended the dedication ceremony for a historical marker at the site.